We've all been there. We teach our students a lesson and they perform well on our exit slips and even on the quiz. Then they forget it when it's time for a test or midterm, or even worse, they forget everything over the summer and the next teacher has to review what was forgotten. In a poll by the National Summer Learning Association, 2/3 of teachers said they spend at least 1 month reteaching students old material when they return from summer vacation. Teachers mentioned that they spend up to 30% of their entire year reteaching. Hi, I'm Gerard Vargas, and I help teachers improve their SEL skills as well as that of their students. In this video, we'll explore some simple ways of applying the neuroscience of learning and memory to support long-term retention in our classes. First of all, it's not really our fault for this. As teachers, we've never been taught the science of memory and how to incorporate this into our teaching. I never learned it in my grad school courses either, so. Secondly, we can't blame our students either since they were never taught these principles, but now we can do something about it. Hermann Ebbinghaus developed the forgetting curve principle, which basically means that if we taught our students something today, through a lecture for example, then a day later they'd remember about 50% of it, 2 days later they'd remember 38%, 7 days later less than 10%, and so on, if they didn't study or review it. So if we learn something and don't make an effort to remember it, we'll forget it all. So how do we combat this forgetting curve? First, we can teach the information more effectively at the start by using the mnemonic TEACH. T stands for, we must transform the information in a way that the brain loves by using visuals like images and stories in our lessons, having students create mental movies as they listen, mind maps, or personal sketches. Students can summarize information in their own words, connect it to what they already understand by using analogies or compare or contrast charts, and they can create something useful like a tool, poster, diagram, or mnemonic. The more senses and connections they can make with the information, the better. This is known as dual coding. When students learn vocabulary, for example, they can use Freyer models, foldables, concept maps, or mind maps. E stands for emotions drive learning. We remember information that is emotionally charged and survival related, novel, funny, and bizarre even, relevant, urgent, and high utility. And the brain learns best when it's happy, excited, curious, and compassionate, not stressed, afraid, or defensive, or other distressed emotional states. A stands for active recall. Ensure students use active recall, which means for them to quiz themselves periodically. C stands for chunk. Chunk your lesson input into 10-minute segments, followed by some processing activity, like having students summarize their notes and then teach their partner 3 key ideas. This is also called chunk, chew, check, or the 10+2 method. 10 minutes for content input and 2 minutes to chew it or make meaning. Students can also group large amounts of information into categories. The list, sort, label activity, concept maps, and outlines are a great example of this. And lastly, H stands for help others. Students learn best when they have to help others with the information they learned. Have students teach each other, discuss concepts, give each other feedback, and interview high-performing peers in order to learn their strategies. After doing this, if we review what we learned periodically, a day after, 3 days after, and 7 days after, as shown here, we regain 100% retention and slow the forgetting curve. And the best way to review is called active recall. In active recall, you study a topic so well that you can teach it. You start thinking, what were the key ideas? Why do they matter? How can I use this in my life? Then you quiz yourself or teach someone in the simplest form such that a child can understand it. Einstein once said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. Then assess how you did and identify your gaps in understanding. Think, what details, misconceptions, or main ideas did I miss? Then review the material to understand it better. Start thinking things like, how can I remember it more effectively? What parts aren't sticking and why? Then repeat the process until you can quiz yourself or teach someone successfully with confidence, no errors, and a clear understanding. Self-quizzing or teaching someone requires effort and is challenging, and this is why it works. In a 2011 study published in the Journal of Educational Psychology, a class of middle school students reviewed their notes 3 times before taking an exam. They had a C+ average on the exam, but when a similar class completed 3 pop quizzes before taking the same exam, they had a class average of A-. The group who reviewed or just reread their notes didn't do well, and this is a trap that students fall into. So teach your students the difference. Self-quizzing and teaching others requires retrieval of information, making and correcting mistakes, relearning information that wasn't clearly understood to begin with, and other effort-laden processes that solidify neural networks, making them more robust. So the key in this entire video is to teach our students to love the effort process, because that discomfort is a sign that we're creating long-term memories. So this is all nice, but what does it look like in my classroom? Day 0 is when you first teach your content using the TEACH acronym. Especially look into Chunk, Chew, Check, which I believe is the most powerful teaching strategy combo ever. Then on the next day, which we'll call Day 1, include a do now or starter activity requiring students to use that information from the day before. This can be questions about the content, a sample problem requiring them to use what they learned, or show them some slide images of your presentation for them to summarize and then teach a partner. Require that students use vocabulary, skills, and content from the day before in the learning of new content. Students can review their notes, summarize them, write questions they're stuck on, and then discuss with a partner. You can also have a student create a poster summarizing key points that they place on the wall to support retention. 7 days later, or earlier if possible, but 7 days at the latest, you can include low-stakes pop quizzes, group quizzes, or practice tests. They may use their notes to support recall, but require that they put the information in their own words. Ensure that they use older content and skills to solve new problems, engage in discussion of new concepts, and even in completing exit slips or proving behaviors. If what we taught them was really important, it should keep coming up later because it's needed to learn newer content. Students can make concept maps or mind maps of older content so they can make connections between those ideas, compare and contrast them, and find patterns among them. All of these ideas are known as interleaved spiraling. The traditional model of teaching is that we teach one topic and give students lots of practice on that topic. Then we move on to the next one, do the same, and so on. But because students are practicing and repeating the same information, the brain isn't really engaged. It's not working hard enough and expending energy to retrieve information. It's like giving students a bunch of math problems of the same kind, and they can do them so well because they require the same exact steps and operations. But the moment the problem changes even slightly, now they're confused. So what's better is interleave spiraling. Give elements of topic 1 with some practice, but then mix in topic 2 with some practice and so on. This helps students remember the difference between similar things, the similarities between different things, and it naturally includes spaced repetition. 30 days later, we can give students exams with interleave spiraling. This means that instead of having questions grouped by topic, the questions are intermixed and include multi-topic questions. Projects, activities, and discussions require that students apply older concepts, vocabulary, and skills. You keep including low-stakes quizzes, group quizzes, or practice tests. 2 to 3 months after, and continuing all the way until the end of the year, you can include midterms and final exams with spiral content on all topics learned. Projects, activities, and discussions require past content, knowledge, and skills. Students could work on semester portfolios or other interleaved projects. And overall, there's no perfect way to do all of this, but just remember, you're always integrating what they've learned. So if you do this naturally, then you've got it down. But if not, just remember these landmarks. Day 1, Day 7, Day 30, and continue each month or so until the end of the year, and students will retain more content. So I'm curious, what do you do to support student memory retention throughout the year? Respond in the comments below, and remember that your ideas will help so many other teachers figure this out. We're all in this together. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel.